Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Ponderosa North for the love of Bonanza. I'm going to do a part 2 of the bits and bridles and tack, oh my, because there was quite a few questions that came, and there are a few things that I'd like to add, just about, horses in general and their behavior. Like I said, I'm not an expert in all this stuff. I know a little bit about horses compared to what the trainers and the people who spend their entire lives around horses know. So I'm just going to give you my little input. So I forgot to mention that the saddles, before you put on a saddle, underneath you would groom your horse first. There wasn't a whole lot of grooming going on in Cartwright land. Haas groomed his horse every now and then, but before you tacked up, you always groom your horse and check their feet, and then a pad goes on, and then a blanket under the saddle, and then the saddle will go on top of that. And usually it's placed quite high on the horse's back. It's not on the horse's back, it's more on the withers, on the shoulders of the horse. So the weight is on the shoulders of the horse. Hooves, they're like fingernails. They grow constantly and they need to be trimmed. Every 6 to 8 weeks they need to be trimmed. Some horses wear shoes, some horses don't. My horse Shane had shoes on his front feet because he had fairly weak feet and they cracked easily. And he lived in a herd. And if you have shoes on the back feet, you can do some damage, because when horses are fighting for pecking order, they kick each other with the rear, and you can do quite a bit of damage if they're wearing shoes and they live in a herd. And also, if they live in a herd, they have a pecking order. When they are let in at night to have their dinner, they come in order of seniority. Sometimes it's a mare, sometimes it's a gelding, whoever wins the fight out there. And they will come in order every night, and when you let them out in the morning, you let them out in the same order. Very hierarchy system in the horse world, and rarely do you see a horse alone. There's safety in numbers to horses. If there is a single horse, often they'll have a goat as a companion, or a donkey or something like that. Horses do not like to be alone. They are very fearful animals. Flight. I can't tell you how many times I was out on the trail and came across a plastic bag, and my horse was just like, that's gonna kill me. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. But you have to stick with it and make sure and calm them down. And this bag is not going to kill you. This is not a killer bag. But they are very fearful of everything. And you'll notice in quite a few scenes when the Michael Landon has even said in interviews that when the Cartwrights have to part, the horse is going, I don't think so. We're going to stick together. So often they'd have to reshoot those scenes where the Cartwrights were all together on their horses and had to part because the horses wanted none of it. Also, a couple things missing on the Ponderosa. One, as we all know, was an outhouse, or any kind of thing like that. But also beside every barn, you will see a manure pile. In the hay burner, the guy says, I just hate these critters. I have to feed them, and I have to give them water, and I have to put them in their stalls. But he didn't mention about mucking out their stalls. So yeah, horses do quite a few things well. They eat, and they sleep, and they, do the other thing. Eating, so many expressions come from horses. Chomping at the bit, you're getting long in the tooth, and eats like a horse. That's kind of a misnomer. I think it more has to do with volume than what they eat, because horses are vegans. They are completely plant-based mammals, just like deer and giraffes and cows. They get their protein from plants. The other couple of things about bits, I did a couple sketches here, close-up of a curb bit, and you can see how that works. This little notch at the top, as you pull the curb bit back, it will put pressure on the roof of the horse's mouth. And this is a snaffle bit, works differently. The reins connect to the rings here, and as you pull back, it puts pressure on the side of the horse's mouth. If you Google bits, you will see hundreds of types of bits and combinations and different variations of bits. Give that a try. You'll be shocked at how many bits, how many options there are for horses. So back to the questions that people had, mostly from Sharon. She said, do different horses ride differently? Yes, absolutely. As the each cartwright walks differently, they all had different gaits, they all ran a different way. So do horses. They all have a different gait, they all have a different feel, all different breeds. Probably the biggest difference would be Sport and Chubby. Sport, very thoroughbredy, very long stride, very, flying lead chains, and very spirited and very lively and bright stepping. Whereas Chubby, on the other hand, was more, draft, flat-footed, clumpy kind of gait that he had. Cochise was there, sort of very flat-footed, very choppy kind of gait to him. Buck was pretty fluid. He was a pretty fluid horse. He had a nice gait. But yes, all ride differently. All have a different feel. She also asked, is tack interchangeable? Meaning, could you use one tack up from one horse onto another? That's a bit iffy. Saddles you might be able to get away with, but there's a lot of adjustments to make to not just the horse, but to the rider. A saddle, you might have to adjust the girth, and also the stirrups, different sizes. And the horse might, he's going to feel the difference, but most trained horses would probably put up with that and get used to it in good time. Bridles, on the other hand, I would say no. They're trained on different bits, and like I showed this before, they have to fit. They have to fit properly. This curb bit fits just inside. You don't want it like this, and you don't want it like that. Just ever so slightly. So if you were changing a bridle on somebody, you'd have to make sure that these were adjusted properly to fit the horse properly. So it comes down to fit for both horse and rider. And yes, a different bit on a different horse. Yeah, they might be have a little attitude about that. But an experienced rider might be able to get away with it. The other question she asked was, does Sport toss his head because he was spirited? Well, yes, I suppose. He had an attitude, I think. He was spirited. He wasn't your average trail horse. He had a lot of sort of thoroughbred in him. And I just think he kind of had bad manners. He had an attitude. A lot of people, when they're standing by their horse will sort of nudge them. Like, that's just a bad habit. It's just something that, you shouldn't allow and you should discourage. It's like, don't reward bad behavior kind of thing. I just think he had kind of an attitude, and he really didn't. He probably could have made better. They probably could have made better use of a different bridle, tried different things like that, but they didn't. The other question she had was, why didn't Purnell use a martingale on his horse? Martingale, as I told you, is connected to the bridle, to the reins, so the horse can't flip his head. Purnell would have nothing to do with that. All the horses were provided by Fat Jones Stables. They probably bought that horse. Who knows where they got him from, or who trained him, or it goes back to where he was born, who raised him, who trained him. You used to say break the horse. We don't break horses anymore. We train them. And so that would have gone back to sports training. As far as Purnell having anything to do with it, I mean, Sport would be all tacked up for him, and the wrangler would say, here's the keys, Purnell, act, kind of thing. It wouldn't have anything to do with Sport's tack or anything like that. So I think I've covered all the bases here. Again, if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask. Please like, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next time on Ponderosa North for the love of Bonanza.